On today's Minute of the Apes, Daddy Todd is going to make sure Sean and Richard stay in line and do our stuff and stay in order.
That's right. Cut the comedy.
Take your sticking paws off me, you damn dirty ape!
The divine bomb.
The only good human is a dead human! Where there is fire, there is smoke.
The minute of the apes. 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 Yay!
Hello and welcome to Minute of the Apes, the daily podcast where we break down every minute of the Planet of the Apes movies, 1 minute at a time. I'm Todd, and I just had what was close to my rock and roll fantasy is listening to me play music, and I look over and see Richard headbanging to it with his long...
I can do it now.
Yes, you can.
I can do it now. It's so awesome.
I've never had the honor of getting to have Richard come out and see me play, but that was the closest I've ever had to Richard kind of getting into my moment. So thank you, Richard. You've made my rock and roll fantasy come true.
Made an old man's dream come true.
And Sean, are your headphones working? Are we good?
Yes, we're good now.
So we had a little bit of a stop down between recordings because for whatever reason the technical guys said to Sean, "You've done nothing to change anything, but it's not going to work." But I think we're all together.
We're good now.
Wow, that's such a good thing. So we're at minute 18, and yes, we are going to stay on course because speaking of the gods that rule things, the Zoom gods are going to be on our butts with time because of our technical issues. With that in mind, Sean, tell us about minute 18.
All right, we start minute 18 with Caesar saying there'll be equals till the end of the world, and ends with McDonald saying that under the dead city.
All right, let's take a listen to minute 18 of Battle for the Planet of the Apes.
People. Then we shall all be equals and remain so until the end of the world.
Which may be sooner than you think.
You are such a pessimist.
Or a prophet.
Well, now that apes are at the helm, Earth will sail safely through space until the end of time. And Virgil says time has no end. So you see, I cannot believe you.
Would you believe it if you heard it from the lips of your own parents?
Are my parents alive?
No. But their images and their voices are.
MacDonald, when you talk about my parents, please do not speak in riddles. I cannot see them, I cannot hear them. Amanda's only told me they came out of the future. They cannot give me knowledge.
Caesar, you can see them. You can hear them. And they can give you knowledge.
How?
Under the dead city, we once lived in the...
As minute 18, we have a village worth of apes and humans.
Man, I got to do a better job of watching the time and cueing Sean because I'm getting so into watching the minutes that I forget to give him his 2-1, so I apologize for that. Man, this minute is so riddled with great stuff, great ideas.
And then just some stupid fucking logic.
That, yes. Okay, so where do we... I
mean, come on.
By the way, Sean, can you kill your buzz on your phone because I am getting such a...
Oh, sorry, yeah.
All right, so... From the lips of your parents is the first one that hits me. And
well, first of all, before we get to that, why does McDonald think the end of the world is going to come pretty soon?
Well, why does Caesar think that this trust will happen and we can be equals to the end of the world? Like I've never we saw an entire movie where Caesar was angry and bitter and mad, and all of a sudden he's Mary fucking Poppins.
We're going to be, if you're my bestie, we're bestie till the end.
It didn't really, his complete and total change of tone from one movie to the other movie is now
when there's smoke, there's fire. And now, hey, let's be friends.
I know, now it's starting to get on me just a little bit. This Caesar is more reminiscent of his father Cornelius from the prior movies when he was being, courted by humans in Escape. When they're having maybe fun just being ridiculous. He's a little more that character again.
Maybe just seeing the humans get pretty much wiped out mellowed them out a little bit.
He's like, ha 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 ha.
Okay, everything's coming up, Caesar.
Sorry, Todd, we're totally dying.
No,
but yeah.
Hey, I'm just going to cut your asses off if you continue the joke fest. That's all it's going to be to it. But to your point, I think that's a pretty on target observation that he's kind of a little bit like his father was. And I almost start thinking now, wouldn't it have been interesting if Caesar's almost tortured in this film? Because he is the child of apes and a human, and he sees the frailty of both lines being pulled apart. He knows, because things that he may have learned secondhand about his parents, the bits of knowledge about the end of their planet, that they had to escape it. Okay, he knows they fell apart, but he also knows that the humans killed everything. And it would be more interesting right here if he's kind of torn and pulled in all of these places, instead of just being this very noble, as you said, at Mary fucking Poppins, which, by the way, I may have to find a way to put effing in the title, because that's a perfect title for this episode. But
so we talked about this idea of that scene that wasn't filmed with the two kids doing war early on. Right. Mm-hmm. And we talked about this would have been that moment to interject that change in Caesar. Mm-hmm. This would have been that moment to show how he himself is transformed because of his prior rise up, the man's war, and now he himself has matured and become more like his father. This would have been that would have been something nice to see, so we know where he is now, why he's now benevolent leader versus angry overthrower,
Right.
Anyway, so there was a line missing here that I understand why they cut, but it might explain why the writers wanted this scene to be a little ridiculous. Caesar says you're a pessimist, and McDonald badly says, or a prophet. And Lisa's supposed to say, you've been at the fermented coconut milk again. They say it makes you very happy at night and very gloomy in the morning. And then Caesar's supposed to continue on with, now that apes are at the helm. So we're supposed to believe that these two might have been drinking a little bit before this kind of craziness happened. And again, if it's a kid's movie, they probably took out the reference to drinking for that reason. But it might explain why the two actors are a little more over the top.
Okay, I'm so glad they took that line out.
Right. Doesn't fit.
It doesn't fit. And a plus, if you're going to say you've been at the coconut milk again, you don't need the explanation about they say this. That's like saying you've been at the tequila again. If you drink the worm, you don't need all that crap. It's just put the tequila away.
If you're watching if you go back and watch the scene again, when Caesar says you're a pessimist and McDonald's gives you're a prophet, there's a cut. Yeah. There's a really quick cut, and they're both smiling and looking at Lisa before they turn back to their conversation.
So they probably shot it.
It's very abrupt, but you see them suddenly both smiling after the prophet comment and turning back to their conversation again.
But I hate the delivery of that line of a prophet, because it feels like when he said it, I thought that's the line where if Caesar is his overlord, his whatever, his slave owner, effectively, he should say that line, or a prophet, where he puts his head down to the side, says it almost to himself, and Caesar's like, what did you say? They take out all subtlety of delivery and just make everything on the nose, to the point that I think that by the time then we get to this conversation of the parents, that's why I led with it. I despise from the lip of your parents, because it's like there's no reason for McDonald to have this information. He needs to say something like, from the lip of your parents, are they alive? No, but I've begun to suspect that there may be footage of them. I found these things. He needs to explain. This is one time where we need that explanation of where this shit's coming from, because he's literally pulling godlike information out of the air and giving it to Caesar.
And he says it says it almost as a threat. Would you believe if you heard it from the lips of your own parents? It sounds intimidating, and I can prove to you, it doesn't sound like a teaching moment,
right?
It sounds like a threat,
like you're stupid and I know something you don't.
Right, and this is something that you would think that McDonald having this knowledge, somehow Caesar would have had this knowledge at some point as well.
Well, I mean, Caesar is acting like he's never heard of a television or a radio or a
been around
recorder. I mean,
technology or anything like
he
that.
he grew up 20 years with Armando on the surface. What? They didn't have any media out there. He never saw any clips of his parents, never heard them talking about anything.
They didn't have
How are you
plumbing,
going to do this? What
They didn't
magic
fly
are
in a
you going to
helicopter.
use to let me hear from my parents? You mean the television?
Well, and here Conquest
Right.
is how much of that of the action is monitors that we watch
Yeah.
the camera footage, and he knows about this type of thing. But there's something that occurs to me when we talk about how things should work in this film. So we open after the lawgiver with Aldo riding his horse frantically, and we have no reason. We have no secondary scene that has said he's doing this to get this information here. What if instead of Aldo, why couldn't that have been McDonald being the one that's running in? I'm gonna way I'm gonna explain that is in the first film, Cornelius is out in, we know that he's gone out to the Forbidden Zone, is getting stuff like this. What if McDonald is that same type of character and has found this footage? And that relates to, you could put him being the one to come in and try to get in and tell Caesar something, and this is finally his moment to give it. He has no reason to know this. We're showing nothing that says, hey, he has found something that might give new information to the way things are perceived. Those opening scenes, I'm kind of now starting to think should have been tied to this in some way. He's found something he needs to share.
Yeah.
And the way he's speaking around the subject, if I had important information that your parents had, and that I had found out from your parents, somehow I'd seen a recording, or even if I thought I had information, I wouldn't come up to you and say, hey, Todd, what if you could hear this from the lips of your parents? I would say, hey, Todd, your parents told me, or I found footage of your parents saying XYZ. And then you would go, what? And I'd say, yeah, do you want to see it? Instead of, would you want to hear what your parents might have said?
Right.
And it would have also been nice to interject something from McDonald about the loss of technology and why they're living in the stage they are now without electricity or without these kind of comforts anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing long, just a little line to kind of set up the fact that they don't have these luxuries anymore, but I bet we could get them from the dead city.
Yeah. And he also gets to the point of you can't see them, but you can hear them. And it's like, okay, how do you know that unless you've been there to do it and
seen it?
I think that it should, even the phrasing of that should be, if my suspicions are correct, you can't see them, but you can hear them. How would you know this? Because I found evidence that tells me that there are parts of the city. That's kind of the conversation that needs to be had. But he has information that he shouldn't have. And we've had these moments before in these films where people like speaking about things and they don't have a reason to know it. And this one is so bad.
So McDonald is trying to say to him, there's a future that I'm aware of that is deadly. And for some reason, Caesar, you've never heard it, but let's go find images and voice of your parents who basically told us the end result of where we're headed. Like, is that what McDonald is trying to get him to do, to say, hey, it's not going to be all peace and lovey with Apes either. Let's go find footage of your parents where they tell you how bad it gets.
Yeah, and I don't even think that is. Yes, I think you're correct. That's kind of what's being tossed there. I don't even think that that's been earned enough of. There hasn't been enough of the apes must lead this, because look at this, we aren't destroying each other. At this point now, it shouldn't be. We shouldn't even be hearing ape shall not kill ape, because now we want to show that they're going to show how bad it can get. That's almost to me where the ape shall not kill ape should come in, is now we start to see, oh shit, it's not just humans, it's everybody. When we all get into this and when we don't treat each other equally, yada, 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 we do this. The arguments at the center of this film are just way all over the place.
Yeah. Well, we have we do conclude with something that is kind of nice with this minute, with the Under the Dead City. Mm-hmm. And now I'm excited. Oh,
what is this?
What is happening? What's that? What's the Dead City? If we're breaking it down just by the minute, that one little phrase, "Under the Dead City," got me excited.
It's